I'm Scott Rocknack, and this is the HH50. We're at Fort Lauderdale today, just sea trialing and getting everything ready. Everyone's on board, commissioning the boat, and let's put her through her paces. We're sort of in cruising mode here. We have 3 forward sails. Each one of them have a UV cover. This is the reacher, this is the overlapping jib or the solent, and this is the staysail. If you leave them up, you have to furl these when you tack, but that's not hard to do. It's all controlled from the cockpit. If you want to take a sail down, you can take this one down, you can take the reacher down. This one is actually the forestay, so that stays up. These can go in a bag and stay on the tramp, or they can be stored in the bag down below in the lockers. You can see with the reacher and with the staysail, there are downhaul lines, and they're going through frictionless bearings here. So the concept is, just like with the 55, these lock at the top, and then you can pull on these lines here with a winch that's aft, and there's a device here that allows you to lock it in place. So you can take the tension off the line from the winch, but it keeps this tension here because they're locked. The HH50 has a one-piece carbon fiber longeron, crossbeam, and martingale. You can also get this on the OC50 as an option, otherwise it's aluminum, but in this case on the HH50 it's all carbon fiber. This is a stainless steel ROCKNAK anchor. It's located forward on the longeron. Gives you a little bit more of a pivot point when you launch from here. It is self-dumping, and there's a chain counter back at the helm to see how far you let out the chain, and there's also a bridle, which I'll show you from the front. The reacher and the solent are Doyle Stratus. The staysail is Hydronet. All the lines on the boat are a slightly different color. They're all lead aft. They all have a dynamo or a Spectra core. They have Antail return blocks just like on the 55. This opening here, there's a cover for it that screws in, has a connection for the pump or the lift that's inside of the mast that moves the mast and tunes the mast, because we don't have turnbuckles on this boat. It actually moves and you put a wedge underneath of it to tune it. The solent or overlapping jib has a jib track right here. You simply pull this up, you can turn it, and you can move it where you want, and then drop it. It locks into place, like that. This boat has 2 forwarding hatches rather than the Wabasco single sliding hatch. This one lets a lot of air in. You can open and close them from outside. You can lock them from inside, but they do act as a very good way to ventilate the cabin. There are 6 118 watt panels on board, and there are 2 104s and 2 52s with just over a kilowatt of power. It's possible to put about 1.5 on the roof of this boat. Fairly straightforward. You could squeeze a little bit more, but it's a practicality of the shadowing of the boom you have to consider. The lazy jacks are set up full width with these haystack style boom extensions on the side, and there's a big open rectangular area for your sail to fall, and an extended zipper lanyard here, so it's easy for you to cover up the sail to keep the UV damage and the rain off of it. The lazy jacks are held on with a Dyneema line, and they also have a Dyneema or Spectra core to the lazy jacks themselves, and they are tied and secured on the extensions to the boom here, and they hold up the boom. You don't have to use the topping lift to hold up the boom, and you can use your topping lift as a topping lift, but you could also use it as a spare halyard or to pull someone to the top of the mast in a bosun's chair. This boat has the 11'6" aluminum rib high field. And this is a dinghy that was set up to work with the davits. Here, the floor mounts were added just in the right place, and it works so you don't have to have a side-to-side line on it so it won't sway, and it also has a slightly downward tilt so the water drains out of it. The Dagger boards are on the outside of the hull. They're also on the outside of the hull inside, so there is full cabin room. It takes up very little space, and I'll show you that. But here there's plenty of walkway around it. In fact, when they're in the up position, they're easy to grab a hold of. The staysail track is eyebrow shaped, and it has stops that you can predetermine where you want to set them. In this case, we have it set when we're sailing to be 5 bolt holes back from the end. But when the boat is sitting, we can move the cars all the way up to here and keep this from moving side to side. Like on the 55s, there's a kick pad here, so if something comes back and hits the mast, it's not going to scar the finish on the carbon fiber, or if you have a OC with aluminum mast. So this is handy to have. The water tank is right underneath of here. It's a single water tank on the boat, so it's located in a space about this big. And this is the fill for it here. These, by the way, you just push your finger on it. You can turn them with your Leatherman or your hands if you don't tighten them too much. The barber haulers are designed to take a forward sail sheet and be able to pull it in, giving you more sheeting angle. And this is very similar to the 55, and it has a frictionless block here with some Dyneema line on it. And this just pulls open. It's a Dyneema shackle and allows you to have access for this to put it over your sheet. The B&G GPS is here, and then we have an AIS GPS antenna. These are kept low as per the recommendations of the manufacturers. You don't put these up high. Each helm has a well here to throw your lines into, and there's a mesh basket that accepts them. This is a manual Harken 2-speed used for the downhauls for the forward sails. You've seen some of my videos where there's a 4-speed pontos here, and that still is a pretty good idea. They're expensive, a little bit more to maintain, smaller gears, but you could consider, if it'll fit, a 3-speed winch here manual as well, because I think you're going to need that. Just that little extra horsepower, I think, is a bit much for the 2-speed, and it does work, but you might want to consider a 3-speed or a 4-speed winch here. Let's take a look at the starboard helm. On the starboard side, we have the Statial sheet, the Cunningham, downhaul, all 3 reefs, the Solent sheet. We have a main halyard, a topping lift, a main sheet, and one of the barber haulers. This is all on one side. So you'll get to see a little bit of a theme here. Main halyard and reefs. Those are here, also with the trip releases for the hooks that are going to go on the reefs. So that's handled from the starboard helm. You also have a topping lift here, which could be used as an emergency main halyard, or it could be used as a service halyard to get up the mast. And you have a Statial sheet, but that's on both sides. And your Cunningham is here as well. So your main sheet, your main sail is mostly controlled from the starboard side, with the exception of the main sheets. They're on both sides. So when you're putting up the sail, you're on the starboard side of the boat. The Solent sheet is repeated on both sides of the boat, so you have a windward and leeward sheet. The Statial sheet is a single line sheet, so you have it, but you do have them on both sides of the boat. And your reacher can be brought leeward or windward. Depends on what side of the boat you're on. Can be brought up to this winch here, or it's brought to the winch that's behind me. All the lines are color coded. The reefs, for example, on this boat have green and red and orange, and they have associated trip lines with them that are also the same color. The larger winch here is a 2-speed Harken, and those controls are on the floor again. And it's a larger winch because you have your Solent and your Statial sheets here. Your main halyard and your main sheet is handled by this winch, which is also a 2-speed. That also handles the topping lift and the barber hauler. Down inside the well are 2 Beta Marine control panels with a tachometer and indicator lights. Of course, you have your B&G, your throttles, and a variety of instruments. These are Dagger board controls here: port up, port down, starboard down. And this is for the traveler to the port, traveler to starboard. This is a good spot for your cell phone, portable VHF radio, and there are outlets there to charge them. The winch controls are on the floor, 2-speed here. This way you use your foot instead of your hands, keep your hands free. High speed, low speed. There's a sliding hatch here. That can be locked in place with a bungee cord, either retracted or deployed, and that helps keep this area dry below. One of the nicest aspects of this boat is the large aft window for the master cabin and also the guest cabin. It also has a ventilation port here. The reacher winches are 2-speed Harkens, just like the Harkens up above, and like the ones up above, have 2-speed controls on the floor, keeping our hands free. So with these, you can use it for your reacher sheets, you can use it for your Solent or your Statial roller furler. And if you didn't have the crew to operate here, you weren't on autopilot, you can bring your lines from the block here and bring them up to the outboard winch at the helm. This is the line driver for the traveler, and there are buttons for it up here at the helm. Underneath here is a freshwater and saltwater washdown, and over to port is a 12-volt outlet. The cabinets that are to either side of me don't have their doors on them at the moment, but they are nice little cubby holes. If you needed to service the winch that's attached to this line driver, you take suction cups to the panel here and pull them off. You'll find some panels throughout the boat that do not have a latch on them. They're pulled off with suction cups because they're very rarely accessed. The davit lines have a clutch, but you just use that, of course, to hold the line. We have a fair lead here with a line that comes through the fair lead that you put on your reacher winch to pull up the forward or aft part of the dinghy. At the port helm, we have the barber hauler and main sheet, just like the starboard side. We have the staysail sheet, just like the starboard side, and we have a solent sheet, just like the starboard side. But in addition, we have a reacher hired, a solent cover, and a staysail halyard. We have the same winches, we have the same engine controls, and we have the same engine panels, including the same B&G instrument. We also can control the Dagger Boards and the Traveler from here, just like the starboard side. It's your choice to have a window here, which is a good idea because it's a very good way to see your telltales on your main. You could also do this if you want, but this is a lot easier. But I do recommend getting a cover for this for sunlight when you don't need to use it. Opposite of this here and here are solar panels. We also have an LED light that can be red or white. When I was at the factory, I saw the L shape on this boat, and used to the 55s that have the full settee here, and I thought, well, I'm not sure if I get that myself. But now that I'm on the boat, I realize that having the table here has been really, really beneficial because, first of all, it's the only aft-facing seat in the cockpit, unless you have your legs up on one of the lounge here or the lounge here. So I can work on my computer, and I can see people walking up and down the dock. I see the boat behind me, and in this case, there's a bunch of center consoles going by, and they're always waving, and I wave at them. So it's a really good vantage point. So I think it's actually become one of my favorite seats in the boat. For example, when we've been commissioning a boat, a lot of times folks will go inside and do things inside, close the door, and air conditioning, and be sitting inside working on computers and so forth. But I come out here, I think it's one of the best places to do that kind of work. By the way, with the lines here, they all go into a bag. The bag has not been manufactured yet. It hangs down about 11 inches from the base here. And everything goes in there and opens up this entire space for like a life raft or a cooler or just additional storage. Above it are two latches that access the back of the B&G unit and other things on the helm. And the back of the helm itself here is also a removable plate to access the steering. This is the retracting pedestal arrangement for the cockpit table. The portside cockpit settee has a fixed table, but it does have fold-out leaves. We have cover on it right now because the boat is being commissioned, but you can see it's solid teak with radius corners, it's maple, it's highly varnished, it's very rugged when it is folded out. You can get these that fold down and convert this into a small double, but keep in mind you already have a double in the cockpit on the starboard side, you have a double right here behind the door, and you have another double forward. The storage underneath is accessed through two hatches here, and they're quite deep and big. And if you take off this cushion here, there's a step to get up here to the helm if you don't want to use the steps aft. Please look for my next video, which covers the interior in great detail on this HH50.